Ever since Donald Trump announced that he was going to be massively removing protections for state-sized sections of national monuments and just cutting them down to, in some cases, 50% their original size, in some cases to 10% of their original size, we knew that it was likely this was done to benefit oil companies, mining companies, people who wanted to drill for uranium and things like that. And they didn't care if it destroyed Native American sacred sites and all of that. They wanted to sell off America's resources to the highest bidder or perhaps just one of their friends. We've suspected that, but now we actually have internal Interior Department emails confirming that that was what was going on behind the scenes. These documents were obtained thanks to a New York Times lawsuit, so thankfully for them, we have this information. They were able to compile something like 25,000 emails. Now the bulk of the documents that were made public, about 20,000 of them, 20,000 pages, detail the effort by the Obama administration to create these new monuments, including receiving input through email from environmental groups, Indian tribes, state officials, members of Congress. And during that time, just as point of comparison, Obama created or expanded 29 national monuments during his tenure, representing a total of about 553 million acres, which just for the record is the most that any president has. Less now that they've been cut down to size. But what was going on was that soon after the inauguration, Senator Orrin Hatch started pushing for reductions in the size of these national monuments. And he started sending information to the Interior Department about maps of potential sites of resources that could be exploited. So Cenk, who was heading up at that point, his staff developed a series of estimates on the value of coal that could potentially be mined from a section of Grand Staircase, one of the two main monuments we're talking about, called the Kaiparowitz Plateau. And that's basically just a repetition of what we said. Now that plateau, though, located within the monument, contains one of the largest coal deposits in the United States, according to an Interior Department memo issued in spring of last year. 11.36 billion tons are technologically recoverable, it projected. Now that is not the sort of load of resources that they're gonna just let lay there in the ground. And so not long after Donald Trump made his move, he cut down sections of the monument, and it turns out that the initial map that Senator Orrin Hatch sent out mapped very closely to the eventual map that Donald Trump removed protections for. We have some more information, but that's the gist of it, that they had been talking about exploitation of uranium, coal, natural gas, oil, and things of that sort at the time for months.
Sounds like it's a uranium controversy.
Sounds like Sean Hannity's gonna be all over it.
Oh, I'm sure Fox News can't stop talking about this. So I think all administrations, Republican and Democratic, should meet with everyone. So I'm not outraged that they would meet with business leaders who would have mining interests. So you should meet with environmentalists, tribal leaders, but also business interests. So that's not the question to me. The question to me is, okay, but did you then follow what the business interests told you to do fairly closely? And or did you say, okay, well, I hear you guys, and hey, look, if we take like 15% of this area, and then you would have access to the mining, but we wouldn't disturb the tribal area, and then largely keep the environment intact, et cetera. And maybe the Republicans take away 35% of the park, and Democrats would only take away 10%. Those are the conversations that I think are reasonable to have, right? Trump instead, as John pointed out, Hatch sends them a memo going, all right, here it's 85%, and here is the whole map of where the reserves are. And they go, yep, done. Okay, wherever the reserves are, all of a sudden is not public land anymore. So it didn't look like there was much balancing here. It looked like they were told this is where the companies want to mine, and then they said, yeah, why don't we just make those private and let them take our stuff? And by the way, are we getting the adequate amount of money that for what was public land? So if you're gonna mine there, are we taking most of the profit? Because that's our uranium, that's our coal, that was public land, a couple of weeks ago before you made this decision. Now all of a sudden, they get to keep the profits. And if there's any environmental damage, et cetera, we get to keep the losses.
Well, similar to what happened with DAPL, when he first got into office, he overturned Obama's decision to not allow the Dakota Access Pipeline to be completed. Trump allowed it to happen, and now there's been over 5 spills. Now he's going after Native people and the environment again with this decision on Bear Ears, just mapping it exactly where they need to mine this coal, which, by the way, is an outdated industry that is not going to exist in a couple of decades, and you're putting tariffs on solar and making sure that jobs in America aren't created with a burgeoning industry, an industry that's going to have a future in the world, leaving us behind so you can essentially play to your base and say, oh, go coal. It's ridiculous. And also Zinke, in only this administration do we know who the Secretary of Interior is, right? Like we're talking about the Secretary, but Zinke has presided over this, he's had a horrific tenure so far. 10 out of 12 of the members of the National Park Advisory Board resigned in January, just out of frustration. They're saying they're not getting anything done, so.
And you know, this is something that's been talked about in other administrations. Obama was being also petitioned to make these changes, to give into big oil, big coal, to these different mining interests, but was able to hold it off. And as Cenk says, you know, there would have been a negotiation probably under whomever, even Hillary, as to what would happen here, but it would certainly be a sliver of the percentage that we're talking about here. This is draconian. And to Emma's point, we're backsliding. We're backsliding into old, dirty energy. And since it doesn't make economic sense anymore, old, dirty energy, we have to prop it up with all these kinds of price supports and tariffs. The whole policy it makes no sense.
And one final from me, as I've pointed out before, and I'll continue to do it, a lot of people have sort of been holding their nose and their breath during the Trump administration, thinking, okay, he's doing a lot of these bad things, but in a few years, Bernie Sanders will run, he'll win, and he can reverse it all, which I think we're glossing over how easy that'll be once he gets into office, but maybe he can do that for some things, certainly. But the problem is that when you drill these sites, you can't undrill them. When you destroy the natural beauty of our country, you can't undestroy it. When you smash these sacred native sites, you can't unsmash them. It doesn't matter if, dream of whoever you want to be president. If they become president, this will still have happened. It will still have been exploited. It'll have been sold out from under us. And that's just the way it is, unfortunately.
And by the way, the companies think about it in the opposite direction. So Energy Fuels Resources Incorporated, who is going to gain the most, it appears from this, thinks you can't take away the profit I already made.
Yeah.
Your parks might be destroyed, but I already got that profit, and it's a sad day for you. And then finally, to the point that Emma and Mark were making, they give this illusion that the coal industry is gigantic in this country. And so it makes it seem like, hey guys, you libs, you care about the tribes. I don't care about them because they're not me. I don't care about the environment, and I don't happen to go to that particular park in Utah. So what, man? Let's at least get some jobs, right? No, the coal industry only has 160,000 jobs in America. Solar industry has 260,000 jobs. Meanwhile, Donald Trump did a tariff that affects parts that go into solar panels, and it is now going to cost about 23,000 jobs in the solar industry. So between solar and coal, he's cost us jobs. So it ain't about the jobs. That's not what it's about. It's about certain companies that are friendly to the administration saying, give me what I want and play ball. And they do. It is not for our benefit, it's for their benefit.
It's not about economic growth, it's about enriching the industries that already exist and that donate to them and that they are pals with.
You just watched the video by the Young Turks, home of the revolution. If you'd like to get a lot more than that, get the full show by becoming a member. tytnetwork.com/join.